The biggest problem with budget phones is that none are what you would really call cool or aspirational. What you get is a sea of forgettable Me Too designs and a long list of compromise that you settle for because that's what you can afford. One company is out to reinvent that mentality, and it's time to take their new affordable flagship for a review. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocket Now, and let's take a look at the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3. Alcatel One Touch is not new to the US market, but its products have only been famous for their affordability. Still, the Idol 3 falls in line with a few predecessors that are focused on raising awareness on the company's new plan in building affordable flagships, and it's clear that they've come a long way. For starters, the Idol 3 doesn't seem like a budget phone at first glance. Its matte hairline finish at the back matched with a very thin 7.4mm profile, and the chrome rings that surround it give it a very elegant first impression. The front actually only makes it look better with its flank stereo speakers on a recessed design that elevates the display in a way that resembles some of the curved HD TVs in the market. The phone also feels extremely light, probably too light for my taste, but the materials and its size actually contribute to not making it feel cheap, which is good. My only true complaint with its design is the left-mounted power button, which is rather odd in its placement and also very thin, so it's hard to feel for, but it also has double tap to wake on a display in case that's uncomfortable for you as well. Spec-wise, this doesn't seem like a budget phone either. Its specs resemble and even better the $500 Oppo R5 in many ways by packing an octa-core 64-bit 1.5 GHz Snapdragon 615 processor, matched with an Adreno 405 GPU. You also have 2 gigs of DDR3 RAM, 16 gigs of expandable storage up to 128 gigs via microSD, a large 2910 mAh battery, and we've also got LTE HSPA Plus connectivity for all major US GSM carriers, dual-band Wi-Fi 802.11n, Bluetooth 4.1 low energy, NFC, and all the 9 yards of a typical flagship. We're actually reviewing the larger model, which sports a 5.5-inch 1080p IPS display that's also enhanced by Technicolor, and that actually shines through even when you compare this with the AMOLED panel of the Moto X. Great color saturation, great viewing angles, and deeper blacks than most of the IPS displays that we've reviewed in the past. More interesting is that probably this is one of the brightest displays that I've ever used, where 25% brightness on the slider was enough for my needs, for example. The stereo speakers on each side are also enhanced by an own brand, this time JBL, just like the headphones bundled in our review box.
It was tough not to draw an immediate comparison. It took wearing the watch for over a week to understand what it isn't.
The sound is very crisp and even a tad louder than our experience with HTC's Boom Sound, which is great for watching videos or playing music, but that's really not the coolest trick that this phone can do. Believe it or not, there's a microphone and a speaker on each side, and the software is enhanced to allow you to use this phone upside down if you want to. So you can take a phone call from the bottom or take a phone call from the top, it doesn't really matter. It's a really cool and nifty feature that every manufacturer should consider. It's extremely thoughtful and very practical if you're, for example, driving and you want the headphone jack to be at the top or the bottom. It makes no difference. Speaking of software, one of the most positive aspects of this device is that it runs a very light skin on top of Android 5.0.2 Lollipop. If it weren't for the icon pack and the folder animations, you'd really think that this is stock Android, and that's really a good thing. This allows for a very smooth experience overall. You'll notice that the reversible screen controls are within the slider, in addition to other enhancements that are a plus for the stock Android experience. The company also bundles some of its proprietary applications that, instead of providing bloat, enhance the user experience. Services like WhatsApp, Facebook, and Twitter come pre-installed, and there's a light Facetune application that enhances selfies. There's an Office suite and the nicer weather application that provides a very good weather widget for the basics. There's even a music mixer that allows you to create turntable scratch effects with your own music. Overall, if you prefer stock Android like we do, this is definitely a very good way to go, even though software updates in the future are the best judge over time. Both Hayato Huseman and I have been testing the Idol 3 over the course of a week in the US and in Guatemala City, and our consensus is pretty much the same when it comes to user experience. This may not be the fastest phone by flagship standards, but hey, those other flagships cost twice as much. We do see some negligible stutter in the launch of folders every now and then, or some sluggishness in closing down all applications as well, but there's also times when you find this thing launching stuff faster than the Moto X, so there could be Lollipop to blame here. It does take some time to launch a game, for example, but once loaded, it handles the graphics well, and the combination of the large display with the stereo speakers actually provide a very delightful experience for gaming for the most part. Oddly, phone calls sounded better over the speaker than through the earpiece. I'm not saying that sound is bad, but it's not as crisp through the earpiece as when you activate the speaker, even though it's plenty loud for both usage scenarios. Data speeds over my test in Guatemala's HSPA Plus were good, and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth reception were also good for the most part. Sadly, if it weren't for the cameras, my list of cons for the Idol 3 would be very slim. The 13-megapixel primary shooter is backed by a Sony sensor that provides decent photos during the day. There is also a decent amount of shooting modes like HDR, panorama, and even manual controls, but the resulting photos tend to either overexpose or favor yellows at times, especially in HDR. Low-light photography tries very hard to favor light, but at the expense of sometimes pixelating darker areas of the photo, which is really a problem. Selfies also suffer from these issues in most cases, but that's a common thing even for the best flagships. Video recording was also good, and there's even a time-lapse mode which is very hard to find on Android phones, in addition to other modes, which were cool. Again, you really won't buy this phone for its camera, but then again, I could give you a list of very expensive flagships that could offer the same amount of performance anyways. Now, leaving the camera performance aside, what's a true shocker for this phone is its battery life. I start my day every single day at 5 AM, ended at 10 PM to 11 on average, and every time I've ended with 40% of battery life, which is really good for a phone in this price range, and I've noticed that this performance improves over time. And I think that my experience with its battery life is the best way to conclude this review. I find it hard to believe that this phone cost only $250 unlocked. Tell me something, how many $650 phones provide you with good stereo speakers, all-day battery life, and expandable storage? And even on the other hand, tell me how many $250 phones provide you with LTE connectivity, packed under a very elegant and thin design, and a great 1080p display? Or, let's just face it, how many budget phones provide users with innovative features like a reversible display? Bottom line is, I think the Idol 3 is definitely in a class of its own. It does a good job at being both affordable and capable, up to the point where I'd recommend this over the Moto G anytime. This device is definitely a good solution for a first-timer, a teenager, or even an adult looking for a very elegant solution on a tight budget. Surely my personal needs would probably require a better camera, but hey, that's really just because of the bubble we live on as reviewers. To get all this for $250 unlocked and complain would simply be unfair. Overall, I do believe that Alcatel One Touch did a really good job with the Idol 3. For more coverage on the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3 or even the Alcatel One Touch Watch, in addition to more news and reviews, make sure you follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and you can follow me on Twitter, Jaime_Rivera. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I am Jaime Rivera. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.